This is Smithy.tv.
Hi, welcome to the Tony Rosato Show. I'm Tony Rosato. Thanks for tuning in. I have a very special guest today. His name is Barry Shainbaum. I'll tell you a little bit about Barry. Barry Shainbaum is an icon of survival and success. Today, he is a renowned public speaker, broadcaster, and celebrated photographer, acclaimed for documenting some of the world's most famous and heroic individuals. But first and foremost, Barry is a captivating, inspirational speaker, addressing diverse audiences that span mental and emotional health groups to high-end corporations. Drawing from his personal struggles, he brings his listeners hope and inspiration, motivating them to overcome adversity and reach for their personal goals and dreams. From Nelson Mandela and Jane Goodall to Arun Gandhi and Shimon Peres, Barry has traveled the world to photograph and interview the world's most noted icons of hope and heroism, and he brings their empowering messages to your group. Barry Shainbaum is also a radio announcer. He announces on Faith FM, a radio show on faith, inspiration, and triumph over adversity, hosted by Barry. The show is on Sunday, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's called Faith FM CJTW 94.3 in Kitchener, Ontario. It rebroadcasts the following Sunday on Faith FM Woodstock, Faith FM London, Faith FM Brantford. And we have a list of some of Barry's credits. He's been featured on the Los Angeles Times, Fox TV, New York City, Toronto Star, Toronto Sun, Canada AM, Breakfast TV, TV Ontario, Court TV, and numerous radio stations across North America. Barry Shainbaum was also the recipient of the Iliana Roman Memorial Award, presented on April 28, 2011. The award is given out annually by the Dream Team for being a leader in the advancement of human rights and for inspiring others to find their voices. Barry has also been nominated for the Courage to Come Back Awards in 2004, 5, 6, 8, 9, organized by the Center for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto. He's also been nominated in 2004, 5, and 6 for the Hero Award, part of the Inspiration Awards. Barry, one of your radio guest testimonials was from Bobby Curtola, Canadian rock and roll singing legend, who said, "You sure did your homework, Barry. You asked me interesting questions that I usually don't get to talk about. I really love your style." Barry, you've accomplished quite a lot. And we'll talk about your book in a short while.
Sure.
That you wrote and put together called Hope and Heroes, where Barry has photographed and interviewed various heroes, so to speak, throughout the world. And they talk about their portraits of integrity and inspiration. He's also featured in this book called Dancing in the Rain. And this has got 25 stories of hope, healing, and recovery. Barry is one of these people recovering in this book. He also photographed all the subjects in the book. Barry, you're an amazing guy. You've got so much going for yourself, amazing talent.
Thank you, Tony.
You're a radio broadcaster, you're an author, you're a public speaker. But how was it? I understand that you had serious mental problems like many years ago before all this happened. Could you take us back a few years to when your life was not quite so successful and you were going through turmoil and you were suffering as a young man, and lead us back to how you got to this place where you were able to put this book together?
Sure. I never would have known that when events hit me when I was 18 years old that it would lead me on this journey, this roller coaster through life. And I never thought that I would actually come out the better end. 18 years old, growing up in Hamilton, I suffered hallucinations and delusions. Within a couple of days, I was in a locked psychiatric ward at Hamilton General Hospital.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
You said your hallucinations and illusions.
Yes.
Can you remind me? You said in your book that you were found yourself looking at yourself in a newspaper.
I was at my then girlfriend's in Ancaster, just outside of Hamilton.
Yeah.
I just met her recently, and we were sitting there. Her folks were in the house, and the Hamilton Spectator was on the coffee table. And the delusions of my mind, I saw myself on the front page.
Wow.
And the TV was on, and in the delusions of my mind, I saw myself on TV. Now, one might think that could be exciting, maybe for it tells the future, but in reality, it was mind numbing. It was scary,
Yeah.
and I went catatonic. I stopped talking. It felt like a bad drug trip. My brain was fried. stopped talking. My folks took me to the doctor. They checked out my brain at the hospital and found nothing wrong. But I had stopped talking and I had the hallucinations. So within a couple of days, I was in a locked ward and they kept me for the whole summer. And that itself was incarceration in a psychiatric ward. Here was 1970. It's a long time ago.
Right. And after that, Barry, what happened?
Well, I just want to mention that during the whole summer there, I started to find one person who believed in me. There was all the staff at the psychiatric ward. They had basically not much use for me, believe it or not. One nurse, her name was Miss Balaban, one human being took the time to talk to me. And I'm so reminded by how the power of one person can connect and affect and touch another person. So I just wanted to share that story of how one nurse made an impact on me over 40 years ago.
Wow.
So they let me go. I went back to school. My mind...
Well, you went back to school with different ideas of what you wanted to do. You weren't sure what you wanted to do, I take it.
Well, I just finished grade...
around from one school to the
well, I
other.
just finished grade 12. Then I went to grade 13. And those days we had grade 13.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get my mental focus back. So I passed, but I did very badly. Did 13 for a second time. Decided I wanted to be a landscape architect. I got accepted at University of Guelph. And I was waiting for school to start. I was driving back from Guelph to Hamilton to see my psychiatrist. And the delusions came back. At this time I thought I was a police officer. I even pulled a car over.
What?
I was driving my Austin Mini and I pulled a woman over because she had a lot of problems with the car. And
You pulled a woman over by yourself, stepping out of your own car? And just
well, I was
flag her down?
I was an undercover police officer.
Would you cut her off, or
I did. I did it skillfully, but I lost touch with reality.
Right.
And I let
You
her
thought
go.
you were a cop.
Yeah, absolutely. I let her go with the warning. I was out of tickets that day, so I let her go. And then I continued on to see my psychiatrist. He didn't
Did
know
she
that I was
buy
a
this
cop.
whole thing, by the way? No
Well,
questions asked?
I'd love to
Someone-
meet her. I'd love to meet her.
I'd love to see what she thought of you today.
It was scary and dangerous. I lost touch with reality.
Scary and dangerous indeed. You could have killed somebody, really.
Or she could have killed me
Yeah,
if this was Los Angeles.
yeah, truly. So after that, Barry,
I went out to see my psychiatrist, and he didn't know that I was a cop, and he saw that I was having mania symptoms. I got diagnosed with manic depression in 1972. And then, I eventually thought I'd become an optometrist, and that didn't work out, and then I eventually decided on photography. I looked at what was inside of my heart, that I liked taking pictures, and I eventually graduated from Ryerson with a degree in photography.
What a great decision to make, because you're such an incredible photographer.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to show this book. This book is called Hope and Heroes. So I got some of my notes in here. But Hope and Heroes. And Barry collaborated on this book, I might mention. He had someone write the bios for you. Is that correct?
I had two people, Shannon Fitzgerald and Madeline Palko. I wrote the bios from their research and from the interviews that I did with the people. And David Chasky, who was a radio broadcaster who became a psychotherapist, wrote a lot of the questions that I used for the interviews. Who would have thought when I did this book years ago, it would eventually lead to an opportunity to get into broadcasting. I never planned to become a radio broadcaster, but life provided an opportunity and I accepted it 9 years ago.
How directly did it provide the opportunity, Barry? Just by notoriety of the book and sales of the book and the realization that the book was out there?
Well, I contacted some media in Kitchener through just trying different places, and I was accepted on a Christian station called Faith FM to be interviewed about my book and my life. And the
Isn't that a
station,
Christian network?
It is. It is.
And you're Jewish.
And I'm Jewish. So before I even got into the car to drive to Kitchener, the station manager said to me on the phone, "By the way, do you want your own show?" And I thought, when did Shainbaum become a Christian name? And I said, sure, why? And he said, Christian station, religious license, we could use some Jewish programming. So after a couple of months of negotiating and planning, I started a half-hour show called Sunday Mornings with Barry Shainbaum. And our friend Jerry Salzberg was my first guest in July 2005. It has evolved throughout the years to a 1-hour show on the 4 Christian sister stations, a show on life and society. So they wanted a Jewish show. I've evolved it to a show of life and society, news and affairs. The majority of my guests are authors and a lot of academics. And each week we look at life critically on good things that are happening in the world, or looking at bad things that are happening and how they could be changed, so where we could learn something from the challenges of the world.
So those are the main themes that you operate around in terms of choosing your guests.
Yeah, and also since I like music, I'm also a musician. I've had a number of very well-known musicians and local musicians who perform and who talk about their lives on
Like
my
Bobby
show.
Curtola.
Bobby Curtola, Dan Hill, Sharon Hampson from Sharon Lois in Bram,
Bonnie Raitt.
Sid Dolgate from Travelers. Is it the Travelers?
Mm-hmm.
Who played Mandocello. And Bonnie Raitt is in my book, but she hasn't been on my show yet.
Right.
So,
Well, it's a fabulous book, Barry. It's got so much, as it should have, hope and heroes in it. Can you talk about some of the people that you felt most inspired by in terms of interviewing, in terms of photographing?
there's two that I could start off with from different sides of the spectrum. Nelson Mandela passed away at age, I believe, 95 or 96 just recently. I'm honored to have Mr. Mandela in my book. I photographed him when he was in Ottawa a few years ago. I had a brief chat with him. I didn't actually have a sit-down interview, but I was able to speak with him. And to meet someone like Nelson Mandela, who comes out of like 26 or 27 years of prison and talking about reconciliation and forgiveness as opposed to vengeance, what a great honor. On the other side of the spectrum was a young woman by the name of Julia Butterfly Hill, who recovered from a serious car accident.
Right.
And she ended up meeting some environmentalists in the west coast of California who were tree sitting in this large tree called Luna,
Right.
B under H for Hill. And when she went up in the tree, she says, "I won't come down till the tree is saved." She lived in a tree on a 6 by 8 foot platform on 2 levels for 2 years. She didn't touch the ground in 2 years. It'd be under H for, there we are. Yeah. The links to what people will do to stand up for their principles. And she
Did you
lived
climb this
in a tree.
Barry, to meet this girl?
I climbed a 100-foot rope while I was recovering from tennis elbow.
How did you manage that? That was quite a feat.
Well, I went to Mountain Equipment Co-op in Toronto and tried out their climbing equipment to get an idea for what I'd be facing.
Was it pretty crowded on top of that tree?
Well, when she lives on a 6 by 8 foot platform, her house is crowded. The tree house is crowded.
Right.
And you can just go into to YouTube and type in Shainbaum, my last name, and you can see a clip of myself climbing the rope and spending time and talking to Julie in the tree.
How long did you say she was in the tree?
2 years, approximately 2 years.
She went through snowfall.
She went through everything. She went through everything for 2 years. It's amazing.
God bless her.
What the human mind can do when we set ourselves to something.
Who else, Barry? Who else can you mention that you got so many people in here?
Well, I just had Silken Laumann on my radio show last week, an Olympic medalist who in 1992, when there was an accident where the boat from Germany in preparation smashed into her boat and sliced off her calf muscle, and she went into shock, and the doctor said there's no way in 10 weeks she would recover to compete in the 1992 Olympics. And she says, well, I'm going to try. And because of her training and her persistence and a lot of hard work, 10 weeks later she fully recovered and she won bronze in the Olympics in 1992 in Barcelona. There's Silken right there.
Yeah.
Her book just came out called Unsinkable.
She's your next guest on your show.
She was
too,
just on.
She was just on?
Last week. And I'm honored to have had, so far, 10 of the people in Hope and Heroes from the 47 have been on my show.
Does she still row?
It's a very good question.
I mean, just for the heck of it?
Not professionally.
No, not professionally.
Not professionally.
Just wondering if
She might. I didn't ask her. In her book, she talked about her past and overcoming abuse from her mother and other issues.
Now you
That's
had
what we talked about.
one of my personal heroes, you had Jane Goodall in this book. Right in the center
One of my
there.
heroes too. I was going to go to Gombe Park in Tanzania to interview her, and then lo and behold, about 15 years ago, she came on a speaking tour in Toronto. So I photographed her in Toronto and had a green backdrop to symbolize the environment. And an amazing person who has researched the chimpanzees, is a pioneer in science and a powerful and spiritual woman. It's interesting to find a scientist who also, some scientists get closer to science, they get further away from spirituality. Others come closer to spirituality and looking at, what else is there out there. So she's very much a seeker and a searcher and a very kind woman.
Now, had she retired from going out in the field at that particular time? When you
I don't
photographed
know if she's still going out into Gombe Park or other places, but I know she speaks in different places around the world.
her? Right. Now, you had a fascinating character, Uri Geller.
Yes, he is fascinating. Uri Geller is fascinating. His whole journey.
I love this photograph. This
Thank
is
you.
just such an incredible photograph. Uri Geller holding a multitude of spoons and forks and knives and whatever that he has bent with his mind.
Uri Geller.
Did you describe the process to you, Barry? Can you describe
Oh,
it to
we
us?
actually.
It's been a fascination for years.
I brought my grandmother's spoon that my mom gave it to, very heavy, solid metal. To brandy, you'd have to sort of go like that.
Really?
You know? Urgh. Anyhow, he took the spoon. Let me just show you. Let's just pretend that this pen here is the spoon.
Yeah.
And here's the cup of it.
Yeah.
So he touched it lightly, and he focused. And seconds later, he says, "It's moving," and he handed it to me. And I watched it bend, and we put it on the coffee table, and we watched it bend, and it stopped when it went to 90 degrees. So I photographed the whole process. I experienced it for myself. And when you see it, being aware that there's been many people who have attacked him and ridiculed him, I do believe he's genuine, and his power started when he was 4 years old.
4 years old.
4
He
years
realized
old,
he was able
Trigus.
to bend.
He had a paranormal experience of a white light zapping him and knocking him out. And soon afterwards, he could just look at the back of someone's head and he knew what was in their mind, and other things started happening. I've spent time with him. He's an amazing person. I do believe in his abilities.
Martin Sheen, one of my favorite actors. You captured his portrait as well. He's handcuffed here. Can you describe the reason why he handcuffed himself in the portrait?
I was flying to Los Angeles to photograph Mr. Sheen. I thought, for every picture, I thought, what can I do creative, something that's a little unique? And I thought, well, as a social protester, up to 15 years ago when I was working on the book, he had been arrested 61 times. So I thought, well, maybe if I can get some handcuffs. So when I got to LA, I called the West Hollywood Police Department. I said, for thank you and hoping heroes, can you loan me some handcuffs? And the cop said, no. But I can direct you to a shop called the Pleasure Chest on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I think you can find some handcuffs. So the police department directed me to an S&M shop.
An S&M shop.
And I went, ever been to one of these places?
Why, no.
There you go. Good answer. So I walked into the place, and there was whips and chains and magazines, and I said, I want the $10 black handcuffs. It's for my business. I need a receipt.
Right. And then you got your cuffs.
I still have them.
Do you keep in touch with him still?
Unfortunately, no. I was in touch with his agent, who was really easy to contact, and that changed some years ago. So I haven't talked to Martin for a while. I very much liked him. And I just want to mention that for any of you listeners, go to barryshainbaum.com, click on Hope and Heroes, and then interview excerpts. 6 of the people in my book, you can actually hear from the actual interview, portions of the actual interview.
Another one of my favorite actors, Ed Asner.
I like Ed.
You've become a friend of his as well.
Yeah,
I understand.
I was in New
Still
York
keeping in touch
last
with
year. I went to his play, then we went out for dinner after. Ed had breakfast at 11 at night, and I had dinner.
How's he doing?
He's doing well. He's getting older.
Yeah.
He's getting older. We all get older day by day, but he's well. He's well, and he's still working.
Why all the archaeological items around
I
him?
asked
He seems
Ed,
completely surrounded by archaeological items.
I asked him the question, and he said that if he would not have become an actor, he would have become like a historian / archaeologist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and all over the walls of his office are all different minerals and this and that and artifacts. And that picture behind him, the fellow on the left, I believe, our left, is his father. So Ed is a very, very, very committed social protester, and he ran into issues with the Screen Guild of America, I believe, with stands he took years ago.
I had the pleasure of doing an imitation of him for Saturday Night Live, and I'm not sure if he was too pleased, but we made a little bit of fun of his activism. And
did you hear back from him?
Just one of those, hey, buddy.
Can you go back one to go one back from Silken to Dune Lankard? This was taken in Alaska, and this borders on the miraculous. Dune Lankard is a half Eyak Indian, and we're out there. This is Child's Glacier, and behind where Tony's fingers are. And while there's lots of wildlife during the photo shoot, there was nothing. And I said, wouldn't it be great to get an eagle in the picture? 2 minutes later,
the story was phenomenal.
2 specks came over the horizon. That's an eagle over his head.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that you summoned an eagle forth, and an eagle came forth.
Thank you. I believe perhaps he summoned the eagle, or between the two of us, we summoned the eagle. And as I said, if that would have been a pigeon, it wouldn't be as majestic.
Right, and he was fighting for his land rights, for his people.
Yeah, trying to cut down on the development of Alaska, of the roads, because all the incursions into the wilderness affects the migrating routes of different.
Have you kept
animals.
in touch with him at all?
He was on my show a few years ago. I haven't talked to him lately.
Do you make it a point of trying to stay in touch with most of these people that you cover?
Some of them.
Looking in on them occasionally?
As many as I can.
See how they're doing?
As many as I can. people have busy lives, but
Yeah.
some of them keep in touch with me and vice versa.
Barry, you have a lot of keynote topics that you discuss with your counseling sessions. And can I
These
read?
are actually for presentations.
Can I read 4 of them?
Sure.
One of them is creativity and mental health recovery. These are keynote topics that Barry speaks on, from obstacles to opportunities, overcoming mental illness, hope and heroes. Now, considering the number of keynote speaks that you're given license to do, I'm sure you're invited to so many throughout the year.
I am.
Which of these topics are some of the ones you're more approach to?
Well, the first one, creativity and mental health recovery, is my latest keynote. In some ways, I'm considered to be presenting new material. The conventional wisdom has been that mental illness is forever, that there's no cure. And I talk about, define the word cure.
Yeah.
Is the cure a pill? Is the cure emotional transformation, maybe even or a spiritual transformation? What about the role of creativity? All life is creative, even mental illness. Just because one falls ill, does that not mean one can't evolve back to mental health years later with some work or different interventions? So I talk about how I recovered my life, got back on my feet nearly 25 years ago, and I talk about how I use connection to photography, in music, and going back to the old haunts in Hamilton, visualization, meditation, perhaps a little bit of prayer, connecting to my essence.
You're obviously not just Jewish.
Oh, I've been raised Jewish, so I am
But you've
Jewish.
expanded your spiritual base to be, spiritual, more profound. I mean,
Thank you. I look at life
with all due respect to Judaism.
with all due respect to Judaism, which is a fine religion. I decide that wherever I can learn things. So I've learned from the metaphysical. I've learned from psychiatrists, psychologists, religion, philosophy, from some psychics, some astrologers. Wherever there is knowledge and wisdom, I used to learn from my late cat. I learned from my cat that the cat will take this much of nudging from me and it swats you. So as human beings, where do we draw the line in our relationships? Which I'm still working on finding that balance, on many issues. So life is a lifelong learning affair. And when I lived in the psychiatric boarding house many years ago, when I was sick and suicidal and had to live there, I sat in the park and fed the pigeons and took a shower regularly every 3 weeks. But I was in the library every single day, reading books on psychiatry, psychology, business. And while I looked like a tramp and felt like a tramp with a roof over my head, I was in the library every single day. I love learning. And that's one of the reasons why I recovered, a lifelong learner, which I believe we all should be. However, it could be through music, could be through art, could be through travel.
I don't want to get to a sore point of yours, but I understand you did something unlawful that
I
got you
did.
in a lot of trouble.
I
Do you mind
did.
talking about it?
I've totally forgotten about that, Tony.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry to bring it up.
Yeah, in my sick and suicidal days, I destroyed some property, and I ended up.
How did you do that? What do you mean by destroying property?
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah?
And I ended up eventually doing weekends at Mimico. And I got to tell you, Harold Ballard, who owned Maple Leaf Gardens, he says they served him steak. We got hot dogs and beans there. But my weekends were just fine. And when my weekends were over, I was sad because doing weekends at Mimico was a lot.
Is that a prison?
Yeah. I mean, now it's replaced by a larger place in the West End of Toronto. Doing weekends at Mimico was more pleasant than living in the boarding house. It was the break from my daily existence. And I have to thank the Salvation Army. We used to get out of the compound for an hour for service and tea with the chaplain from the Salvation Army. And I found them so kind and caring, and I always think fondly. And I've spoken for the Salvation Army. I also received a pardon from the federal government years ago, which is a gift from the government, that one can have an issue, have a problem. After a number of years, you can apply to the RCMP. So that's all gone.
What a nice gift that was.
Yeah, it's a gift, and I thank the federal government because we all deserve a second chance.
Yeah.
Or a third chance, or a fourth chance.
Now you run classes for CAMH.
As a volunteer, every Monday I'm at CAMH, Center for Addiction and Mental Health. I'm in a locked ward, and the majority of the people who end up there have come through emergency wards, and many have attempted or have suicidal ideation. And as a volunteer, I chat with them in a peer support group, and it's easy for me because while I never attempted to kill myself, I was suicidal. I had no use for life, and I had no hope many years ago. And I can relate and empathize, and I believe I'm making good use of my time in there by
What stopped you,
volunteering.
Barry? What stopped you?
I knew I couldn't kill my soul. I knew I couldn't kill my soul, and I knew if I killed the body, you could certainly kill the body or do your best. But I believe the soul is divine, like all world religions believe, that if I incarnated again, I'd have not only the mental problems, which I used to have, I would also have whatever destruction I did to my body. That's what stopped me from attempting to kill myself.
So you're in a spiritual training, a spiritual basis to understand.
From my self-learning.
From your self-learning to help bring your wisdom to that choice.
Yeah, I believe
Thank God.
Thank you. I believe suicide would have been it's detrimental. I believe.
Yeah.
I know it's not for us to judge of people who do kill themselves, but for me, I decided it wasn't going to get me anywhere. So thank God I didn't try.
Right. Now, when you're invited on these speeches, how does that process work, Barry? Do they just contact you through your
People
email?
find me
If
from
people want to talk to you?
from my website,
Yeah.
from referrals. My website is barryshainbaum.com. I'm known in the community across Canada, some parts of the States, and I welcome any opportunities if people are looking for a speaker to talk about overcoming mental illness and even the potential of thriving. I run 5 businesses today because of what I've been through. My degree from Ryerson is in photography. I started seriously professional speaking 10 years ago. I started radio broadcasting just short of 9 years ago. I sing.
How many hundreds of shows have you done?
A few hundred. Well,
Yeah.
a few hundred. I also sing and play guitar and harmonica. I perform in seniors homes professionally, plus doing some
Playing
volunteering.
harmonica and guitar.
Yeah, a la Bob Dylan, the harmonica around the neck.
Do they pay you?
Oh yeah, under $5,000 per hour. And then I do mental health consulting based on my life experience. Some people come to me realizing my background is not medicine or psychology, but I am the recipient of decades of work from my experience of recovering and overcoming and thriving. Some people search me out just to chat because,
When you play old age homes
Yes.
with your guitar and harmonica, do you often get into conversations with any of the elderly people about their mental health conditions and the situations that they're fighting in those homes?
I've actually spoken in some senior homes also on mental health issues, but for me, being part of these retirement and long-term care homes, speaking and or doing music and or as a volunteer, it's nice to talk to the people at the last quadrant of your life and seeing their successes and some of their failures, but just chat, just connecting with people.
Are your parents still with you, Barry?
No, Mom and Dad died about 16, 17 years ago of old age.
And you were still well then back then. You had already started to recover.
I had started to rebuild and
Did they see you being rebuilding before they
did.
left? Yeah.
They did. And it's interesting, being from Hamilton, I was on Tiny Talent Time twice as a kid. People are aware of the show from the local area.
Yeah.
I organized and hosted with Bill Lawrence a reunion of Tiny Talent Time in 1997, and Mom and Dad had just passed on before that, so they knew I was working on it, but they weren't actually. Actually, Mom was alive. Mom actually saw it on TV. My mom was alive when we had the reunion at the Royal Crown Hotel in Hamilton. So I've been blessed by adversity. I never would have said this years ago. Why do 1 in 7 bipolar patients die at their own hands, and others like myself evolve out of the illness, don't have it anymore, and thrive? Sometimes it's a coin toss. It's hard work. It's hope. It's definitely persistence. Definitely resourcefulness and persistence. And I do believe in luck.
And you're a big brother as well, aren't you?
I'm also a big brother.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Karen and I have been together now for just over 5 years. Karen will be 14 in May.
Karen is your big brother's son.
Well, I'm his big brother. He's, quote, my little brother. He's now taller than me. And I first met him when he was 8.5. And the relationship is going well. I see him about once a week, and it's a great gift to me having him in my life. And he has 2 younger sisters who I'm also pals with. And it's Big Brothers Big Sisters is a fantastic organization, and allow people like myself who do not, as I say, had my own children to like parenting without the diapers in a way,
Right.
hanging out with some kids and doing stuff and being a mentor to Karen.
Oh, you're not married, but you have a partner.
Yep, June is my other half, is my partner. We've been together now for 9 years.
And can you tell us how you met her? Because I always thought it was kind of a funny
Well, we used to have two stories. Her story was we met in a cafe, which is true. But we met in a cafe after she first found me on Lavalife. So we met on Lavalife, and we've been together.
So that
now.
works.
It works, yeah. Let's hear it for Lavalife and everything else. It's one of the ways to meet people. I mean, you never know. I used to meet people standing at bus stops. So,
Barry, I just wanted to read some of the keynote comments
okay.
that corporate people have made about you. Here's this comment from the Mood Disorders Association of British Columbia, Vancouver, BC. It says, I was very moved by your sense of compassion, challenged and inspired by your focus on finding meaning in the suffering, and impressed by your holistic attitude towards mental health involving the physical, mental, spiritual, and social. I am a mental health counselor working with teens who suffer from mental illness, and I brought one of my clients. She was blown away by your story. We both agreed that hearing from someone who has been there, done that, is often more impacting than a session with a professional, myself included. Thank you. You're an amazing man with an amazing gift. I really love how you have taken what was a mess in your life and made it your message.
I like those words, taking a mess and made it my message. Yeah. My life was a mess, and it is my message now. What you can take from a mess, and you can make something from it. It's easy to lose faith. It's easy to lose hope. Big part of my message is don't give up. Don't give up. Keep trying. Try different ways. Try different routes to get ahead.
Yeah, and you said also in your book, if one level of work doesn't work, or one course of action doesn't work, I should say, try another course of action.
Try another. Try another. It's like salesman's odds, knocking 10 doors, one will open, or a bad salesman's odds, knocking 20 doors, one will open. And being resourceful, set a goal, then change the goal, assess, reassess.
In your
persist.
men's groups, does this comment resonate with them, or do they just go, oh yeah, right, sure, easy for you to say?
Well, I run a men's group monthly at the Mood Disorders Association of Ontario, and we have men from all different backgrounds. And all I really try to do is to remind people that from where they are, like in a sense, the mess of their life, there's options. There's options through medicine, psychotherapy, exercise, socialization, visualization, whatever it is, try and learn, and interweaving of all different modalities.
Would you ever think of running for office?
I think the field right now is pretty busy for Toronto. Only if someone asked me and convinced me. I've never thought about it.
No?
Do you have an office I should run for, Tony?
Well, I don't know. Run as an MP?
Never thought about it.
Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this show. You're such an accomplished human being, putting so much of your heart and soul out there. It's just wonderful to know you as a friend and as a person. I just want to thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be on your show.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Tony.
Barry Shainbaum, ladies and gentlemen.